I can go through some of our housekeeping items before we get started and come back to this screen. So if you are not well acquainted with Zoom, we ask that if you have video capability, we'd love to see your face, and but please make sure that you mute yourself during the presentation. If you have any problems with the Zoom interface during the session, please send a direct chat message to either me, Jeff Schaff, or Julie Sanderson. If you have questions during the presentation, please type them into the chat box in the Zoom control panel down at the bottom. You can kind of see that here. And there's a chance that our presenters will answer your question later in the session. So please be patient if your question is not addressed right away, and we will have some time for questions at the end of today's presentation. Some other Zoom tips to help make it easier for you to enjoy today's session. In the bottom left corner, you can mute or unmute yourself. Click participants to view the list of everyone who's here. If you need to leave at any time, you can hit end in the lower right-hand corner. To toggle to full screen mode on or off, you can enter full screen or exit full screen. In today's session, it probably makes the most sense to be in full screen, and also select speaker view so that the person who is actually speaking will be the largest box on your screen. You can always go back to gallery view and see everyone who's on today's call as well, but the speaker view will probably be easier for you to enjoy today's presentation. And last but not least, if you're having problems seeing the presenter, you'll be able to slide. There's a bar with the participants on the right-hand or left-hand side, depending on where you have it located, that you can slide back and forth to make it a little bit easier. I'm going to back up here and start from the beginning because it looks like maybe Senator Portman is on with us now.
I'm on, Jeff. I've been listening to your great instructions. You're good.
Awesome, great. Well, we're going to get started with the official program, and I'll have Wendy introduce you officially in just one second. So good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar. My name is Jeff Schaff, and I'm the Director of Talent Strategy at the Toledo Regional Chamber of Commerce. Thank you for joining us for Talent Resource Week. This is something that we usually host as a summit in the springtime, and due to some of the changes with COVID, we decided to spread it out over a week in the fall. The Toledo Chamber is partnering with innovative business and community leaders from across the region to provide valuable tools and resources to help you attract, retain, and develop your workforce this week. This is our first session of the week, and today's topic is REDI, Re-Entry Development Initiative. We have 4 other Zoom sessions over the next 3 days, which you can see here on the screen down at the bottom. There's still time to register if you've not already done so for these other 4 sessions. And I also encourage you to keep an eye out for a variety of other resources that we will be sharing in this week's newsletters, including a new job board on the Toledo Region website, Toledo Regional Chamber website, instructions on becoming a featured employer on the Toledo Region website, and more. We're excited for this morning's session, and we'd like to take some time to recognize our sponsors who make events like this possible. Our gold sponsor is Buckeye Broadband. Our silver sponsor is Associated General Contractors of Northwest Ohio, and our bronze sponsor is the Lucas County Department of Planning and Development. We went through all of the Zoom details, so without further ado, I will turn it over to Wendy Gramza, our President and CEO, for an official welcome.
Great, thank you, Jeff. I think this program is just another example of the great work that our team does. As you can imagine, as the President and CEO of the organization, I just show up to these things and take all the credit, right? So I got to make sure I don't take all the credit. Our team has just been very flexible in terms of presenting this type of information in a very new and different way, and doing it with a lot of excitement and positivity. So thank you to them. So this is our first virtual session of the week, and we will cover our Re-Entry Development Initiative, which was formed in 2017. The session will provide a business-driven approach to assisting employers in hiring ex-offenders and others with potential employment barriers. Recent data shows job openings exceed the number of unemployed workers, I believe this is in the US, by around 400,000. Over 70 million US adults have arrest or conviction records. Employment barriers for those formerly incarcerated and people with felony convictions results in a labor pool reduction of nearly 2 million people. While many of these individuals have marketable job skills, they're unable to find employment due to barriers, perceived or real, tied to their criminal records, costing the economy billions of dollars in lost output. In a tight labor market, it is important for employers to consider candidates that they may not have considered in the past. And somebody who knows a lot about this and has been working very hard on this effort is our first speaker, Senator Rob Portman. And he's going to hate this, but I'm going to read his bio anyway. Rob Portman was elected to represent Ohio in the U.S. Senate in 2010 and was reelected in 2016. Rob was born and raised in Cincinnati, where he still lives with his wife, Jane. Rob grew up in a small business family, and he continues to be a small business owner today. In the Senate, Rob has built a reputation as a leader who can bring people together to deliver results for Ohio, and he has had over 90 of his bills signed into law, including legislation to fight the opioid epidemic, stand up to unfair trade practices, and help end the modern-day slavery that is human trafficking. An independent voice for Ohio, Rob continues his work to help people exiting the prison system rebuild their lives by getting the mental health treatment and skills training they need to reenter our workforce. Rob recently introduced the Reentry Employment Opportunities Act to codify into law the U.S. Department of Labor's Reentry Employment Opportunities Program, which supports national, regional, and local organizations that administer skills training programs. The REO program provides opportunities for returning citizens to be able to have a smooth transition back into society and learn skills that will help them secure good jobs. In December of 2018, the President signed into law Senator Portman's bipartisan legislation to reauthorize and strengthen the Second Chance Act, a law that supports state and local reentry programs to reduce recidivism. Then-Congressman Portman originally authored the Second Chance Act with the late Congresswoman Stephanie Tubbs Jones, and it was signed into law in 2008. Since 2009, more than 850 Second Chance Act grant awards have been made to government agencies and nonprofit organizations from 49 states for reentry programs serving adults and juveniles. Please welcome Senator Rob Portman.
Wendy, thank you very much. That was painful hearing my introduction, but I appreciate all your nice words. And most importantly, thanks for your great job leading this chamber. You guys are always at the cutting edge. And today, once again, we're going to talk about an issue that you have taken the lead on personally. I know you have a commitment to it, and your team has been terrific. And again, Jeff, thank you for the instructions and for what you do in terms of expanding the opportunities for people to find, great workers. And we're in a strange time right now. Let's just be honest. With the election coming up and with the COVID-19 issue still, unfortunately, causing so much dislocation here in Ohio and around the country. And yet, as Wendy said, there are a lot of employers, including in Northwest Ohio, who are looking for workers. And so, although unemployment numbers are too high in Ohio right now, we've gone from about 3.6% to about 8.9%. We still have businesses, and I've visited a number of them just in the last few weeks, who are desperate for workers, and workers who will be loyal, who will show up on time, who will do a good job. And second chance workers are a great way to go. So I think the most important people on the phone call today are probably those businesses that are thinking about, does this work for me? Would I have an opportunity to improve and expand my workforce by tapping into those people who are coming out of the prison system? My answer would be emphatically yes. And the best person to hear from is not me, but is the small business owner who's on the Zoom today, who may speak up later, who is going to say, you know what, I was skeptical, I tried it, and I've never had better workers. And, now and again, it doesn't work. Somebody might wash out, somebody might end up re-entering the prison system, but the overall and vast majority of the people I've talked to around the state who have taken that chance and have engaged with places like the Chamber and with your reentry development initiative in the Chamber come back and say this was a really good experience. This happened recently with me because there's a guy named Troy Parker down in my hometown of Cincinnati who has a cleaning business, and Troy hires other second chance individuals, returning citizens as he is, and he couldn't get a PPP loan. And so I worked with Troy. We were able to get the Treasury Department to actually change the rules. I then introduced legislation to codify that, which will be in whatever Congress passes because it's bipartisan and now I think very well received by both sides of the aisle. But bottom line, we were able to get Troy his PPP loan that otherwise he couldn't have gotten under the antiquated SBA rules. And by the way, he now has over $230,000 in an SBA loan, and he's continuing to hire workers who, like him, have been in and out of the prison system. And again, the experience has been terrific in terms of, again, loyalty, hard work, appreciating the fact that they have a job and that someone took a chance on them. So my hope is that this Zoom today will be about what opportunities are out there, and specifically about some employers saying, you know what, I'm going to go for it. I'm going to try this, and by doing so, you will help to change somebody's life, and maybe many people's lives. Cathy and Ron Tijerina are on the call today with the Ridge Project, I'm told. And to Cathy and Ron, thank you, because that's what you are doing. You're changing people's lives every day. And I look forward to hearing about the great work you're doing to help families with incarcerated family members grow stronger into the future. That's a really important part of the effort to have a strong family, including to be able to get people back to work and back to their families and back on their feet. I'm going to mention quickly two pieces of legislation because Wendy mentioned them. One is the Second Chance Act. I was actually the co-author of that, get my dates right, 15 years ago. So it's 15 years old. It didn't get enacted until 2008, but we started in 2005. We started with a very simple idea, which was that at that time, which is not so different now, unfortunately, 2/3 of the people who were getting out of jail or prison were ending up back in the system within 2 or 3 years. And now it's probably closer to half, but it's still unbelievable. And when people hear that, they think, oh my gosh, it's a revolving door, and it is. And the notion was this is terrible for everybody. It's certainly bad for the community because another crime is typically committed for the person to go back. And so our crime rates, are higher than they should be. It's certainly bad for the individual and the family, rather than finding a job and getting back on their feet and getting the skills training that they need, or the drug treatment or mental health treatment to stay in the system. And it's terrible for taxpayers because guess what? It costs about $25,000 to $35,000 a year to incarcerate someone. In some systems, even more than that. The federal system, as an example. That's certainly a waste of money when you could get people instead back to work and paying taxes. And so I just think it makes so much sense. And at that time, it was kind of a new idea, and yet Republicans and Democrats alike were able to get together and to pass the legislation. I think around $15 to $18 million has gone to Ohio through the Second Chance Act. Recently, one of our Second Chance Act grants went to Lucas County. This is a $776,000 grant last year to help with the juvenile reentry program in Lucas County. So that's an example of how this legislation works. It goes right down to the local level with a grant. When we started the legislation in Ohio, we had about 6 reentry coalitions or task forces, like the task force in Lucas County, or like your reentry development initiative here at the Chamber. Now, virtually every county has one. And one reason is you have to have this organization to be able to apply for these grants. So in effect, what it's done is it's provided more funding, which is good, but it also, and I think almost as important, it has encouraged us in Ohio to organize and to get businesses and nonprofits like the Chamber and government, local government and state government folks engaged in the reentry process. And that probably has made the biggest difference of all, just to require that, you have to have that organization sort of like a coalition locally to be able to apply for and accept the funds. So that's positive, and Northwest Ohio has been really out front on this, and I thank you for that. And again, I think that the chamber is going to make even a bigger difference now. The other legislation that Wendy talked about has not been passed yet. It's called the Reentry Employment Opportunities Act. And this is a little different. It's not grants going out to these counties or local nonprofits, as we talked about, like Lucas County just got. Rather, it's to put into law the skills training programs that the Department of Labor has begun. It supports national, regional, and local organizations that administer skills training programs to people who are coming out of the system. It's called the Reentry Employment Opportunities Act. Democrat Gary Peters and I are the co-authors of that. And we think this has a good chance of being passed, and to support what is a good program now that the Department of Labor is very supportive of. So these are some of the things that are already happening, but what will be most exciting to me is if I hear that after this call, more is happening in terms of people actually making a decision, again, to take that risk, because for some employers it is a risk, particularly smaller employers. But you might find out if you do it, it wasn't a risk at all. In fact, it answered some of your needs and concerns, because you're going to get a workforce that is, again, dedicated, grateful, and that's what we need right now. I spend a lot of time focused on skills training. We have another law called the Jobs Act, which is very simple. It says instead of putting all of our federal money into colleges and universities, God bless them, we love them, but why shouldn't you get a Pell Grant to get an industry recognized certificate to get a job? That's what we really need in Northwest Ohio in manufacturing. We need welders, we need machinists, we need truck drivers. That's what the medical community wants. They need med techs, and they don't need to have a college degree, but they do need to have the skills training and have a industry recognized certificate. And I think for the second chance recipients, that is exactly what they need too. So I think there's a combination here of focusing on the skills training as well as the second chance funding, and combine those in a more aggressive way to help everybody, not just those returning from prison, but all of our young people and some of our incumbent workers to be able to get that skills training they need and get some government help to be able to do that. So anyway, those are some of the projects we're working on. And in the meantime, Wendy, thank you again for what the Chamber has done to show leadership in this area. And I think it's really an exciting time to do it. I know, again, unemployment is higher than it has been, but that unemployment is primarily in the hospitality industry, the travel industry, areas like that, our movie theaters, our bowling alleys, our restaurants, our bus companies. But the rest of the economy, including a lot of manufacturers in Northwest Ohio and in Toledo, are looking for workers actively, as you know. And so it's a good time to not let up, but rather to continue this effort and to help find people meaningful work that enables them to take care of themselves and their family and get their lives back on track. So thanks for what you're doing. Godspeed in your important work. And I look forward again to hearing from Cathy and Ron.
Thank you so much, Senator Portman. I'm going to go out on a limb and say something I probably shouldn't, but if you're looking for a job in 4 years, I have an idea of something that you might be able to do. Actually, I might even write you in this year, and I was going to write in Justin.
But you were my friend.
Yeah, you just leapfrogged Justin Fields, the Ohio State quarterback. He was going to be my write-in candidate. So, all joking aside, thank you very much
awesome.
for all that you do, and for showing that you can still reach across the aisle and work together with those that might have some philosophical differences. So we appreciate that. That's in short supply these days. So thank you for what you do. It is my pleasure now to introduce Cathy and Ron Tijerina. Hopefully I pronounced that right. They are the co-founders and co-executive directors of the Ridge Project, Inc., which is celebrating its 20th anniversary of breaking generational cycles of incarceration, poverty, and underachievement, utilizing the evidence-based Tyro suite of programs. Please welcome Ron and Cathy to share some more about their organization and the work that they're doing in our community.
Thank you, Wendy.
Thank you, Senator Portman, for speaking and for taking time really to be with us. We know your work is really you got a heavy caseload, and it was great. We haven't seen you for a while. You know, last time we saw you, we were in DC seeing you, it is always great and a pleasure to hear you speak. And
Well, I
thank
can't
you.
wait to see you again, Ron and Kathy. Thanks for all you're doing.
Yeah, we're super, super grateful for the two things that you talked about, actually. The Second Chance Act, we have received some of those grants and been able to really impact lives in a very profound way, cutting off generational cycles of incarceration and poverty, getting people back to work, stabilizing families, very much needed resources. And we also are working with the Department of Labor on the Reentry Employment Opportunity Act. So we've had two supports of that. We had a grant that just ended and another grant that started last year, where we're working with incarcerated individuals to prepare them to be successful in the workforce. And so working on all levels of that. So we're super grateful for your work. Please don't stop. We can line up people around your block that will come and tell you the impact that you have had on their lives and how that infusion of support has helped transform lives. So thank you for that.
So to tell you a little bit about us, we found ourselves, I went to prison for a crime I didn't commit. Now that doesn't mean I shouldn't have been there. And one of the key words that Senator Portman mentioned was loyalty, loyal. We work with companies all across the United States. Currently our Tyro program, the word Tyro is a Latin word which means apprentice, novice, someone learning something new, a warrior. And what that does is it empowers people to dream again, to believe in themselves. You know, when you've been living in a generational cycles of poverty, the entitlement mentality, even incarceration, you're bringing a lot of that when you come from a childhood with that part of your upbringing, part of your background, and you take that into adulthood, you have to be retaught. You have to learn how to think again, right? And overcome the adversities that you're carrying with you.
So for me, when Ron went to prison, it was a total shock. I grew up in an intact middle-class family. Prison was like, ew, those people. Couldn't even imagine going through that. I mean, it wasn't even part of our vocabulary. It wasn't even on my radar. I had no idea of the pain and suffering that was happening all around us until we experienced it firsthand. And that's really became the impetus as we looked around. It was like, not only did this plummet us into welfare and plummet us, derail our lives and our family, but we began to look around and see the thousands of families that were impacted. And then the more I looked, it was like there are millions of families that are impacted by this. And so we learned firsthand what the struggles were, what it meant to overcome, to protect our children, to try to build a new legacy for our kids. And even though Ron was the one in prison, I really struggled with employment because, you know, all over the paper, it was like, oh, your husband's this person. So when we think about jobs, we think about the impact to families. It's not just the person that goes to prison, but their family is impacted and their family is labeled and carries this label. And so as we really work hard for social justice for the families that we work with, and we're talking about opportunities that are equal to the opportunities that every other American has at their disposal, we discovered that there are places that people don't even realize that they have prejudices and they practice discrimination just in labeling, wow, well, they're part of that group of people that are prisoners and their families. And so, you know, they're not thinking right. They don't have character. They're liars. They're cheaters. You know, they're going to steal me blind. And so we're constantly disrupting these lies, right? So we had to first disrupt the lie for our own family. And then we began, as Ron said, we created the Tyro suite of programs. And this has been over 20 years ago. Our organization founded 20 years ago. And we've been able to impact youth, adults, families. Over 500,000 people in Ohio have been impacted. And so we're super grateful for that. I'm going to tell you really briefly before I turn it back to Ron, the three things that we do. We do prevention, we do intervention, and we do redirection. And so prevention is really our youth department. And so we work with youth to really help them understand the importance of responsibility, honor, integrity, right? And to dream and to achieve their goals. Intervention, we work primarily with incarcerated and their families. We also work with people that aren't incarcerated but are in generational cycles of poverty, so underemployed or unemployed. And then redirection, we work with that same population, but also really anybody that workforce development, workforce skills, leadership, really trying to take their lives and their talents to the next level. Like, okay, I've never had a job, how do I get there? Or, you know what, I've had this job for 10 years and, you know, I'm working really hard, but how do I take it to the next step? And so those are the three primary areas we work around.
You know, as we think about the companies that need people, right? But they're living in a world of fear, or maybe they, in the back of their mind, they're building a culture that is so powerful that they want to see the legacy that they're building carry on past them. And so we want to help empower employers, CEOs, foremen, supervisors, the HR departments to really understand that what you're looking for is like-minded people. But then you have to be empowered to find those people. Here's the thing. This is what we've learned working in workforce development, working with the companies that will take a chance and hire second chance citizens, returning citizens, that they are looking for loyalty. And I appreciate that word, because loyalty is hard to find. And when we work with trucking companies, welding companies, the restaurants, and from all aspects of the workforce development, one of the things that they said is that when they hire a Tyro, they want to know what is it that makes them different from the regular people they've hired from the streets. It's the character. It's that they've owned their story. And let me give you an example. I was working with one company in Bucyrus, and they had a high turnover, about an 80% turnover. And they were losing contracts. And so they asked if we could come in and work with their employees to find out what is going on. They don't show up on time. They barely do their job.
I'm going to interrupt you really quick,
okay,
just to say that the reason they called us is because they had hired a Tyro, and they said, listen, this is the best hire we had in 5 years. And so we need more people like this.
And so word of mouth, right? So I met with 30 of their employees. And these are, I think only out of these 30, 2 of them had a former, they had been in trouble with the law. They may not have been to prison, but they've had issues. But they all were on the verge of getting fired. They were all being laid. They weren't doing very good production. And so the question I asked these 30 individuals, I'm in a room with them, and I said, why are you angry? And this is what, why are you angry that they hired you? And so they're looking at me like I'm wasting their time. I said, I'm asking, this is not a rhetorical question. I need to know, why are you so mad? And they're like, no, all of them, we're not mad. Why would you think we're mad? I said, well, because you don't clock in on time. You don't show up on time. You barely do your job. So why are you mad at them for hiring you? Mm-hmm. Because when you applied for the job, you told them you were the one. And the lights started turning on. I said, do you remember that you wanted this job so bad that you had dreams that one day you were going to buy a house with this job. One day you were going to be able to buy a car with this job. One day you were going to, right? Whatever it is your dream was, you had that when you applied for this job. What happened? And so when we began to unravel this, the issues weren't at work. The issues were at home. Right?
So it's when we think about the issues that affect employees, they're not unique to those people that have been incarcerated, right? Every person is affected or infected by things that are happening outside of their work environment, and they bring it to work, and then they either affect or infect everybody else there. And so we were super, super excited that we had the opportunity to go in, because somebody that had been in prison came out, we were able to place them in that position. They weren't even in the class because they were thriving. And so the employer said, hey, how do we get more people like this? So what we're asking employers to do is to look at individuals as individuals, not as their record, not as a criminal, not as a felon,
a
right?
former felon.
Right. And so the 3 things that we tell employers that we work with, we say, listen, if you want anybody to be successful, and this includes people coming out of prison, number 1, they need support. Family support, community support, support in your organization, right? So that they have the opportunity to be heard.
And another way to look at support, they need a cheerleader, right? And what better place the person, that company that hires them, hey, we're not only gonna hire you for a position, but we're gonna root for you. What are your dreams? What are your ambitions? Because here's what we tell the people that we work with, that if we can help them achieve their dreams and goals, this is and we tell them, look, if you have a dream to one day pay off your house or be able to buy a house, then you have to help this company become successful. Because
so that you have job security, right?
We're going to help you create job security. First thing we teach them is, do not look at yourself as an employee. See yourself as a contractor. Contractors know that they got to perform all the time, every day they're on the job site. So why? They can get their contract renewed.
Right, so that their reputation is solid and golden, right? So we talk about the support, right? The support inside the organization, the culture inside your company, for those that are returning, but anybody. And the second one, those that are returning, really, they're so hungry. You know, I love, you know, I'm going to keep going back to that loyalty, because they're so hungry. And when they have opportunity, when they get training, when somebody actually steps in and says, you know what are you interested in? Let me help you learn how to be the welder. Let me help you learn how to be a truck driver, and let me connect you with the school. That the sense of loyalty and gratitude, because they know this is a real first chance for them and their family. And so they are hungry.
And another thing, we talk about the triple H, right? We talk about 3 H's. You're hungry, they're humble, and guess what? After they're hungry, humble, they become helpful, because they're now empowered to bring, it's crazy. How many companies do you know where if you hire somebody, they come to that person, I want my family to work here. Mm-hmm. Now that's when you know your culture is different than anybody else, right? When they start saying, can my wife work here?
Instead of saying, oh, I would never want my kids to work here, right?
Now we know those companies.
Right. So the culture, when we think about training, so first, number 1 is support. Number 2 is training. Number 3 is opportunity. And that means really leveling the playing field and saying, you know what, I'm not going to look at Ron any different because he was in prison than I do the rest of my employees. So I'm going to have a room full of employees. I got 10 employees, and I can know statistically that 1 out of every 25. So say 25. So 1 out of every 25 of them has been to prison. But you know what? I'm not going to care about that. I'm going to look for their work ethic. I'm going to look to see who's actually working hard.
And actually, the statistic is 1 out of 6.
1 out of 6. So when we think, that's right, 1 out of 25 is currently, 1 out of 6 ever has been. You're right. So those 3 things, as employers look for good help, if you provide the right environment and the support, or, you know, and that means in your organization that this is a healthy culture, and then that they come in with training, or they're getting training, because we work with a lot of employers where it's like we provide a certain amount of training up to a certain point, then we help support them as they transition into employment to finish up their training.
Let me give you another story. So we work with a trucking company where a tyro came out of prison, went to go work for this trucking company, and then something happened. This is amazing. Something happened. The employer who hired this man to drive trucks for him one day went to him and said, you know what, you have been doing such a great job for us. We want to give you the opportunity to become an owner operator. So in other words, would you like to buy this semi so you can become self-employed? Now what happened? That means this now CEO, this owner of this truck company, no longer seen him as a project, as
a liability,
right? But an asset, and he saw him as an equal of everybody else, because they offered that to everybody. They didn't offer it to the people that were coming out of prison till that breakthrough took place. So now guess what? Everybody who hits a certain plateau when they come to work for them, straight out of prison, come to work for this company, he gives them the opportunity. Look, if you do these things, you will be putting yourself in a place where you can buy one of these.
Yeah, just like everybody else. I got another story that I want to share. So there was a young man that came to our program, and he had been in and out of juvenile detention centers. He had been in and out of prison, his whole family legacy, right? And so he came and he said, listen, I really want to change. You know, I'm watching my boys are starting to follow in my footsteps, and it's waking me up. So he went through the program. We helped connect him to welding. We worked with his family issues and reconciled him with the mother of his children and his kids. And so he becomes a welder. He goes to a company and he starts working for this company. This company is actually in Hicksville. And so
he went to, we were able to get him to Northwest State to go get his certification to become a welder.
And the cool thing was this company didn't want to hire anybody that had a prison record, right? So we met with him, we talked with him, we had all these assurances, hey, we're going to help you, you know, we'll be here if you have any issues. And so finally we convinced him, take a chance on this guy. See what you think. You know what? If after 30 days you don't like him, okay, fine, let him go, right? And so he ends up, they take a chance on this man, Michael. So Michelangelo goes and he starts welding, and 4 months into his employment, they do a drug sweep. They do this major drug test, and they lost like 60% of their workforce.
But in his department,
but not him.
He was the only one left standing.
So then they got him, they said, hey, can you help us find more people? Because he was out welding, outperforming everybody else. So he said, sure. So he started getting, so then they had him, they moved him up to supervisor. Then they moved him up to a manager where he's actually hiring people. Now, this is like awesome. So we fast forward now 5 years. He is literally teaching at Northwest State the welding for this company, so that all the welders that are going to go into this company, they go through Michelangelo. And this was a man that they were afraid to give a chance
That's
to.
just one of many. Why? Because okay, we know negative behavior. You don't have to be taught, right? None of us in this room, in this Zoom call, were taught how to lie.
Or to have a temper tantrum.
Right? We all know how to do that. But somebody had to take time to teach us how to tell the truth, how to self-regulate, how to be under control, right? How to
show up on time,
right?
How to manage our time, right?
So this is learned behavior.
And so as we invest, I mean, Wendy, as you were sharing the statistics, it's so heartbreaking to me to see so much talent behind bars, or so much talent as they transition out, not even given the opportunity, because they could transform our world, our workforce, our communities, and our nation. Brilliant people that just simply are lacking support, training, and opportunity. When we come together as a community, employers, social service providers, families, neighborhoods, schools, and we say, you know what, we're going to stop marginalizing this community. We're going to stop seeing these people and these families as disposable, and instead we're going to start seeing them as very valuable resources. And when somebody begins to see value in you, you can't help but begin to see value in yourself. And as long as we continue to devalue and we continue to marginalize and minimize opportunity for people, then they become stuck in not being able to dream for themselves. Then they have this learned hopelessness, this learned helplessness, and it continues on and on and on. But when that cycle of self-destruction is disrupted with hope and opportunity, it changes everything.
So, you know, I love Cathy. She's amazing, right? So we've been through our story, you know, and we're telling our story. We go everywhere, all across the United States, and we share our story. But one of the things that we share with people, look, this is the greatest country in the world. This country loves an underdog, right? And when your vision lines up with when you become an asset, when you're really empowering people. So in order to have breakthroughs in your own personal life, your professional life, in our lives, wherever you're at in the spectrum of your journey, when you begin to own your own story, no longer does your story own you. You become to be set free. Mm-hmm. So people may still, with the people you're working with, the people that we're asking you to hire, give a chance to, when they're set free, they're still going to be what we call the haters. They're going to be the ones that are going to come up and they're going to come and try to stop them from entering into, right, being successful. But there's a difference between the people you hire that own their stories, right? They already know that's coming. So they're already ready for that. And they're willing to even work harder to prove to the rest of the world, look, that's who I used to be. Yeah. Let me show you who I am today.
So the very first concept that we teach people through the Tyro program, which I think is just like a universal concept that everybody needs to learn, and it's called DTIP. Don't take it personal. Don't assume everything that happens to you, everything that people say, everything you see is all about you. Because when everything becomes personal, you become suffocated by what other people think, and you feel like you're never gonna get there. You're never going to achieve this place where everybody, and it's true, you're never gonna be in a place where everybody likes you and everybody supports you. But that's okay. You know, and if somebody else wants to keep bringing up your past, don't take that personal. Let them carry it. You know who you are. You stay focused on making your dreams come true. Stay focused on reaching your goals and your ambitions, and then let them talk, but you've left them way back there, right? Way, way, way back there as you continue to move forward in your life. So DTIP, don't take it personal. And when they realize, wow, you know what? It's not that people hate me. I said, as a society, they don't support ex-offenders. I happen to be an ex-offender, but I can't take that personal because I can't let them define me and my opportunity.
I think that's good.
So I know we've got about 15 minutes left yeah, until 1 o'clock. And so we wanted to just open it up for questions, turn it back to you, Wendy, and see if anybody had any questions or anybody else had any comments about their experiences with working with this population, which we think is just a gold mine of opportunity.
I don't know if I gave the definition of
Tyro.
I did.
I think
so. So just in case, so Tyro is a new way of looking at yourself. It's a Latin word, means apprentice, novice, someone learning something new, a warrior. And so what we get to do is we empower men and women and families on how to create a legacy that will outlast them, one that they could be proud of, one that they can stand on. But knowing this, that a family cannot build a legacy by themselves. You need the support of other families and other community members. And when you become that asset for everybody and you're helping everybody achieve their dreams and goals and ambitions, man, look what happens to you in return. And that's what we teach families, that you're not in this alone. A company cannot be successful all by itself. It needs the power of the people to make it successful. And so we tell them, get in there and get the job done. When you show up, show out.
I love that. Ron and Cathy, this is Jeff Schaff again. We run a program throughout the year on the Toledo Region website called the Toledo Limelight, and it features people who are doing outstanding things and have various different backgrounds. So as you were telling the story about Michelangelo, I was thinking we have to have him in the 2021 Limelight. We have to get him out there because it's such a great story. And, you know, it could be any number of different, it could be an elected official, it could be a young professional, it could be someone who's in the arts community. But I think featuring someone who kind of pulled themselves up by the bootstraps and is now such an outstanding leader in affecting young lives for the future, I think is an awesome story that we want to share as part of the Toledo region for sure.
We have hundreds of those.
Yeah. We would be happy
Good.
to make the connection.
I will be creating a list for sure. If anyone has any questions or other experiences that they would like to share, please feel free to do so now.
Jeff, can I just ask a question? So it'll take me too long to type it. What do you guys think is like the number one barrier that people face when they come to you? Is there something that just really stands out?
So from my perspective, the number one barrier is their own way of thinking of hopelessness. Like, well, the defeatedness. No matter what I do, it's not going to make a difference anyway. And so, you know, they think that there's such a thing as perfect. And so the disrupting that lie that there's anybody that's perfect is huge, because then if they have to be perfect, then they might as well give up because they're not perfect. But then it's like they really want something different, but they just can't decide if they can actually do it because they feel so flawed, so broken. I think that's the number one thing, because once people realize the potential inside of them, that there is opportunity and that they can achieve it, then, I mean, they just take off and they find a way, they get a job, they connect with the right employers, and they don't care. They become very resilient. And if we can't disrupt that, then everything is crushing, right? Every time somebody says no, it's very personal, and it defines who they are, instead of it just being, hey, you know what, that was an event. It's not who I am. It's not a value statement. I'll ask the next person.
I think just to correspond with what Cathy's saying, I was going to say they're afraid. They're afraid of, well, because all eyes are on me. You know, once we overcome that mind battle, that it's not about us, right? That, you know what, I can keep my head up. You know, I'm not going to let my past define who I am, but I'm going to allow it to qualify me for my future because I learned from it. And I'm going to allow it to catapult me to a new level of existence, the next level of life. That empowers somebody, but they have to get over that a place of the mind battle that they're having, that they're self-defeating. You know, it's not, I'm not worthy enough. I'm not good enough. You know what, look at my history. Look at who wants to hire me, right? And once we help them redefine themselves, it's a whole new ballgame.
So, can you hear me?
Yes.
This is Bob Naparolo with True Label, and so I have not had a chance to hire anybody yet from the REDI program, but I did hire a gentleman a couple of years ago who tested positive for a drug that's used to curb your desire or whatever for heroin. He's like a heroin addict, and that came up in a drug screening. And so I met with him and basically said, hey, look, you know, we believe in helping people grow in all aspects of their life, personally, professionally, and spiritually. And, you know, I understand that you have an issue that you're working through, and we want to try to help you. We want to give you an opportunity, but, you know, you're going to be running equipment that's dangerous. And so we was giving tolerance for substance abuse, you know, and so, you know, stay clean, and, you know, we'd love to have you be part of our team. And so this gentleman, about 9 months after I hired him, like went out of his way one day to come over and talk to me and said basically that he had gotten to like far down the line with several companies interviewing. And he said, every time people found out that he had an issue, they ran from him. And he said, you were the first company that actually gave me an opportunity. And he goes, I just want you to know that I love it here. And I hope that I hire from here. And he's one of my best employees. I mean, he's
Congratulations, Bob. Thank you for that.
So, you know, the mindset's the same, whether you're, you know, he had an issue with drugs, but somebody come out of prison, I mean, he still had, you know, he felt defeated. He felt like, you know, people didn't care. He felt like he's never going to get a job. And, you know, I found out or you know, feel like when you give somebody like that a chance and it does work out, you have a phenomenal employee, you know.
Yeah.
You know, he's so loyal, and, you know, I'm not worried about him leaving me because someone's going to offer him a quarter an hour more, you know, and so he just has done a phenomenal job. He's been with us probably 2.5 to 3 years now.
Wonderful.
And, so I just wanted to share that.
Thank you, Bob.
That's awesome.
I see Dr. Adams has her hand up to say something.
Thank you very much. I really enjoyed this presentation from Senator Portman to the husband and wife team that's doing such a great job. And I'm really concerned about a need that the city of Toledo is going to have with respect to having lead inspectors and lead contractors for this work that has to be done that's coming up with these 25,000 or so homes that are going to have to be, you know, made lead safe. And I was wondering if the couple or anyone else on the call has any ideas how we can get people certified so that they can do this work. And we have a very short window of opportunity to do that with some grant money that we've received. So we need lead contractors and lead inspectors. And if this is a body of individuals that can be prepared or quickly trained and employed so that we can get the workers that we need, which we're very short of, you know, on the job. Do you have any ideas on that or any opportunities that we could have to recruit individuals who could do this work?
So, Ms. Adams, so where can they go get the training? Is it local?
We don't know, but we would be totally interested in helping support that and getting people trained in there.
Well, the Director of Neighborhoods would be able to give you that information. Rosalind Clemens is our new director, and she is desperate for individuals that we can get to work. Almost immediate, it's an immediate and a very urgent need. So all the details could be, you know, given to her, and then she can give the information that you need, and then maybe you can help get her the manpower, you know, and develop that workforce for us. Help develop.
Absolutely.
We will check into it and see what we can do.
Yeah, we should definitely make an introduction. Rosalind is awesome. I met her by chance, like her first couple of days on the job, and she asked some really interesting questions that led me to look at her and say, "You're not from around here, are you?" I just think that you guys would find all sorts of ways to collaborate. So we will make sure that that happens.
Thank you.
Yes, we'll make sure that your information, Ron and Kathy, your contact information will be sent to everyone who's on the call today.
Thank you, Mrs. Graham.
Any other questions?
Jeff, there is one question in the chat box.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Can you see it? Maybe you can't see it.
I cannot see it.
Okay, it's just to me, so let me read it. I'm with a staffing agency and often struggle in persuading employers to try different things, even when the labor market is tight. Do you have any advice on how to approach the subject of second chance hiring and how to convince employers to keep an open mind? I will let our presenters answer that, but I will also say, again, the person who sent this, reach out to me, and when you do have those companies, we do have a second chance hiring, kind of a support group for employers, because as we looked around several years ago, there were programs for the individuals, but there weren't any programs to help businesses, and particularly smaller companies, kind of work through what that means to them. And so this is a group that gets together, and they can actually provide some best practices, some success stories to those companies to help them feel more comfortable. So we'll definitely make that connection with you. And then Cathy and Ron, if you want to answer that.
So, okay, so one of the hurdles that we had to overcome was, how do you get a guy who's in prison get him a CDL in his hand while he's still incarcerated, and go get a job. But the biggest hurdle, we were able to overcome all that. But the biggest hurdle was, how do you get a guy who's a felon on parole or probation insured to drive a semi?
So I think that as an example of, sometimes there are specific reasons that employers are like, wow, you know what, I might be interested in doing that, but how am I going to do it? Like logistically, like they're willing to do it, but will my insurance be okay with it? Are they a greater liability? Am I going to be able to, whatever it is. And so really understanding what the resources are and understanding how to address those things so that they have the answers to them. So for instance, for us, it was like, okay, well, how about what if we provide to you outcomes that show the reduced recidivism? We have a 1-year recidivism rate of 2.7, a 2-year of 7.7. And so we're like a decrease in infraction rate insights. So, okay, what if we show you these positive outcomes for our program participants to the insurance company? They were like, okay, well then if they've gone through your program, I see that they're at a reduced risk, we'll insure them. So finding ways to say, okay, what is it going to take for me to overcome or address that challenge? And really identifying the specific, if they're just concerned about culture, then you can assure them, hey, listen, we're going to do this pre-screening. You tell me, what you absolutely are willing. Maybe you just want somebody that was in for 10 days. Like you want to start with that. Okay. Or maybe you say no violent crimes, no drug, whatever it is, and say, let's start here. And then let's see how this goes. And then we can slowly start opening that window. Then it becomes a door. Then it becomes.
Because when you're doing this as a staffing company, they want to know they can trust you.
Right.
You're the one putting your name out there. You're the one whose reputation's on the line. So it's not necessarily saying no to the individual. So now you got to internally examine. Now listen, we would do workforce development with internally companies, and you might be the best staffing company, but do they know you? Right? And so now you got to say, look, now sometimes we'll do this, we'll get a grant or something and say, look, we want you to hire these guys. We'll pay for the first 30 days. We'll pay for the first 60 days. And so no money out of your pack. But if you love them, you like what they're doing,
you'll keep them.
You're going to keep them.
Right. So just, finding ways to find out what their objections are and finding the solutions to those objectives.
Okay.
Great. Any more questions? It looks like maybe we covered everything for today. I want to just thank Senator Portman and Ron and Cathy for today's session. I think this was extremely valuable, and it actually, we kind of tie into some of the topics that we have for tomorrow. So skyrocket your culture and keep your costs grounded is the Impact Coalition's Employer Resource Network. So some of that coaching, on-the-job coaching that you may be seeing out in the field, Ron and Cathy. And then Bob, you mentioned a little bit about hiring an employee with an addiction. And so that's our afternoon session, and we'll be talking about how do you overcome some of the barriers and what's some of the terminology for that. So I think this was a great way to kick off all of our live sessions this week. Really informational. I'm sure that our sponsors, again, are thrilled that they have been able to help us make this possible. We will send a recap with the contact information for Ron and Cathy, as well as the recording for this session will be up by the end of the week, and any other REDI resources that we have available for your business support. So again, thank you everyone for your time today. I think we managed to keep it under an hour, which is great. And we hope that we will see you for the other sessions this week. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to myself or Julie Sanderson, and enjoy the rest of your Tuesday afternoon. Thanks, everyone.
Welcome.